recap of what we did yesterday, and then I will continue with today's classes. So I hope you all have gone through that what we taught yesterday. So I think it's clear for you. Yeah, good evening. So we'll continue with today's session. So what did we learn in the last class? That is about the biological classification. So what is the need for classification? Because there are a variety of organisms. So there is a need to classify the organisms to know better about the particular organism. So about the history of classification, we saw about the Aristotle, who was the first to classify the plants and animals. And then about the linear system of classification, that is the two-kingdom classification. And then there are so many drawbacks in two-kingdom classification. So the next type of classification is the Whitaker's five-kingdom classification. And then also we saw about the domains. So how the organisms are categorized into three domains like Archaebacteria, Monera, and Eukaryotes. So we saw about the different types of classification, and also we saw about the kingdom Monera. So what are the living organisms that come under kingdom Monera? That is, it includes all the prokaryotes. So all the prokaryotes are placed under kingdom Monera, and under the kingdom Monera, we saw about the different types such as Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. So under Archaebacteria, we saw about the halophils, thermoacidophils, and then methanogens. And under Eubacteria, we saw about photosynthetic autotrophs, and then chemosynthetic autotrophs and heterotrophs. So under heterotrophs, so about parasitic mode of nutrition and saprophytic mode of nutrition, and then about the different features such as reproduction and about the economic importance of bacteria. So I hope you are all clear with that. So I think you felt that easy, that classification, and also about the kingdom Monera. So I think we can continue with kingdom Protista today. Is it okay? So I think, how are you feeling about the chapter? Is it easy? Are you able to follow? So today we'll continue with the, we'll continue with the kingdom Protista. So what do you mean by the kingdom Protista? So it is the second kingdom. The first primitive one is the kingdom Monera, and the second is the kingdom Protista. So what are the main organisms that come under the kingdom Protista? So we'll see about that in detail. So kingdom Protista, it includes the single-celled eukaryotes. So what do you mean by the single-cell eukaryotes? They are unicellular but eukaryotes. So the main difference between the Monera and Protista are they are also unicellular, but here they are eukaryotes, but Monera, it includes all the prokaryotes. So that is the main difference between the kingdom Monera and Protista. And another one important factor about the kingdom Protista is there is no clear boundary of classifying the organisms as per kingdom Protista. There is no well-defined boundary. There's no well-defined boundary. So what does it mean? It is some scientists classify some organisms under Protista. The same organisms be classified under plants by some other scientists. So there is no clear categorization of which organism should be included under Protista and which organism should be placed under plants, because they show some of the common characteristic properties. So there is a confusion among the scientists about the kingdom Protista. So this is actually sometimes called the garbage can. That is, they'll put all the organisms which they are not able to categorize into the particular category into kingdom Protista. So it includes all type of unicellular eukaryotic organisms. So mostly they are unicellular eukaryotes. So that is the main feature of kingdom Protista. So eukaryotes, in the sense, they have a well-defined nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. So they differ from Monera in that they have a well-defined nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. And also another feature that differs from Monera is that Monera includes mainly bacteria. So here it includes the organisms which have cilia or flagella. So what is the purpose of this cilia and flagella? For locomotion. So they are motile. Not all the organisms are motile, but some have flagella or cilia for locomotion. And Protista are primarily aquatic organisms. That is, they exist in water. They are primarily aquatic, and it is a link with plants, animals, and fungi. So the initial primitive one is Monera, and then Protista, and then there comes fungi, plants, and animals. So they act as a link between the Monera and other higher level of organisms like fungi, plants, and animals. It is a link. And they reproduce asexually and also sexually. And sexual reproduction is by cell fusion and formation of zygote. So there occurs a formation of zygote here. But there mostly asexual mode of reproduction is present in the case of Monera. So these are the main features that differ from the kingdom Monera. So this is a little advanced mode than the kingdom Monera. The kingdom Monera include the most primitive forms. That is, they are only prokaryotes. So no well-defined nucleus or membrane-bound organelles, but they differ from Monera in that they have a well-defined nucleus and other membrane-bound organelles. And some of the organisms are flagella or cilia, and they act as a link between the lower organisms and the higher organisms. So these are the main differences. So then we'll see about the different types that comes under the Protista. So what are the different types that comes under? Protista is not actually same as Protoctista. That is, some scientists, they include some other organisms and they named it as Protoctista. There is a mild variation between Protista and Protoctista. So Protista actually it includes the Chrysophytes, Dinoflagellates, Euglenoids, slime molds, and protozoans. So it depends on the scientist who did the classification. Actually, this kingdom Protista itself is there is different scientists included different organisms under Protista. Some scientists, they gave some organisms that can be included as Protista, but the other scientists, they said some other organisms that can also be included under Protista. So there is a difference in opinion among the scientists regarding which organisms have to be classified under Protista. So Protoctista, there's a slight variation, that is inclusion of some other organisms also under that category. So if you take the Protista, it includes Chrysophytes, Dinoflagellates, then Euglenoids, then slime molds, and protozoans. So here also it is these three, the Chrysophytes, Dinoflagellates, and Euglenoids, they are called the plant-like Proteus. It is some of the properties that look like plants. But the slime molds, from the name itself, you know, what do you mean by mold? Mold is a fungus. That is, generally we will say the word mold for some fungal infection or something. For example, if you see one orange, and if you keep it outside for some few days, what will happen? There will be a formation of the mold growth. So that is the fungal growth. So mold is a term generally we used for the fungus. So this slime mold, actually it comes under the group Protista. So here they have some fungal-like properties. So they are like fungal-like Protist. So this Protist includes the plant-like Protist, then fungal-like Protist, and this have more properties of animal. So they are animal-like Protists. So this includes all types of organisms. So some scientists, they'll say whatever is included under plant-like Protists can also be included under plants. So here the protozoa and that animal-like Protists can be included under animals also. So there is a difference of opinion between the scientists. So there is no clear, well-defined boundary that the particular organism should exist in the protists. Okay, so is it clear? Then Chrysophytes, Dinoflagellates, Euglenoids, slime molds, and protozoans. And also if you take algae, for example, if you take algae, so what are the features of algae? Algae, in the sense, we can say that they are the chlorophyll containing organisms. So if you take algae, we classified this algae in 3 kingdoms. For example, Monera, and also Protista, and also in plants. So if you take algae, the algae come in 3 different kingdoms. In Monera, the day we saw that cyanobacteria, which is also called the blue-green algae. So that blue-green algae comes under the kingdom Monera. But here some golden algae, that is desmics, we'll see in detail under Chrysophytes. And the other unicellular phytoplanktonic forms, that is the primitive plants, phytoplanktons, that all comes under the kingdom Protistas and some type of algae. But if you take under the plant kingdom, there is a separate division as algae. So in that you'll see red algae and brown algae and green algae. So all these algae, they come under the plants. So this algae, they show the structural variation because they range from the primitive form to the complex multicellular forms also. But mostly they are marine. So this algae, they are included. And so if you say algae, it is not under a particular kingdom. It depends upon the type of algae because they vary from unicellular to the multicellular forms. And the blue-green algae comes under kingdom Monera. And this golden algae and some other forms that come under Protista, and red algae, brown algae, and green algae, they come under the plant kingdom. So there is a huge variation among these classification, particularly in the kingdom Protista. So we'll see in detail about the Chrysophytes, Dinoflagellates, Euglenoids, slime molds, and protozoans, which come under the kingdom Protista. Okay, clear? So first one is Chrysophytes. So what are Chrysophytes? It mainly includes diatoms and golden algae or desmids. So this is the golden algae. And this is the structure of diatoms. So they are found in freshwater and also in marine environment. So they are aquatic and they are found in freshwater and marine environments. And they are microscopic and they float passively in water currents. Example, phytoplanktons. So they float in water currents. And most of them are photosynthetic because of the presence of pigments like chlorophyll A, then chlorophyll C, and also fucoxanthin. Carotenoids are present. So because of the presence of these pigments, that is chlorophyll A, chlorophyll C, and fucoxanthin, they are able to capture the light and they can photosynthesize, that is, they can prepare their own food. So most of them are photosynthetic, and it includes diatoms and golden algae, which is also called desmids. So we'll see in detail about diatoms. So if you see the diatoms, the difference between the other organisms and the diatoms is that they have the siliceous cell wall. That is, the cell wall is made of silica. So the cell wall is very hard. So because of this hard cell, that is because of the deposition of this silica, they have the many industrial applications. This diatoms, you would have heard of diatomaceous earth. There's many industrial uses. So these diatoms, they have the siliceous cell walls and they form the 2 overlapping shells. That is, they have the 2 shells, one on the upper and the other one on the lower. So it will be like this. One shell on the top and down there will be a one shell, and they fit together like a soap box or a tiffin box. So they fit to one another. But this cell that is made up of silica. So they have the siliceous cell walls forming two thin overlapping shells which fit together as in a soap box. So the cell wall deposit of diatoms over billions of years in the habitat is known as diatomaceous earth. So what does that mean? That is, the cell wall is very hard and it is made up of silica deposits. And this silica deposits, they won't get degraded even after the death of the animal. This silica not get degraded and they will keep deposited on the ocean bed. On the ocean bed, there will be a deposition of this silica, the cell walls of this diatoms. Even after the death of the animal, it gets deposited. So after the even billions of years, there will be more deposition of this diatoms, and that is called the diatomaceous earth, which is also called the Kieselguhr. It is also called diatomaceous earth. And this has many roles like in polishing and also in the filtration of oils and syrups, and even in the making of soundproof room. That is this soundproof room. This diatomaceous earth, that is actually how it is formed. It is formed due to the deposition of these cell wall of diatoms. So because of that deposition, they attain the porous nature. That is, that will be more because they are under the water for so many years and they attain the porous nature. And this porous nature of this diatomous earth, it provides the soundproof effect, or it reflects less sound. So it is used in making the soundproof room, and also it is somewhat harsh. It is not a soft material. So it is mainly used for polishing and also filtration of oils and syrups, and also it is used as an heat insulator. In the case of boilers and all, it is used as a heat insulator. So it has many economical uses, this diatomaceous earth. And because of the presence of the pigments, that is because of the chlorophyll A and other pigments, they can photosynthesize and they are the chief producers in the ocean. They can prepare their own food. So diatoms are the chief producers in the oceans. So these are the main properties of diatoms. And other than that, the main storage food is in the form of the substance called chrysolaminarin. Laminarin and fat. So they float in water because of the presence of fat. They float in the water. So that is one of the property of diatoms. And this diatoms are immobile. So stored form of food is chrysolaminarin and fat, and they are immobile as they have no flagella or the cilia for locomotion. So these are the main properties of diatoms. So they have the siliceous cell wall. That is one of the walls forming two thin overlapping shells which fit together as in a soap box. The cell wall deposit of diatoms over billions of years in the habitat is known as diatomaceous earth, which is also called Kieselguhr, and it is used in polishing, filtration of oils and syrups. And diatoms are the chief producers in oceans, and they have the many other properties like they are used for the soundproof room and as an heat insulator, and the main storage form of food is chrysolaminarin and fat, and they are immobile because of the absence of flagella or cilia. So next, I think you any doubts in this? Are you clear? So we'll move on to the next type, that is Dinoflagellates. So what do you mean by this Dinoflagellates? So the main difference here is they have the two flagella. There we saw that the diatoms are immobile. Here the most of them have two flagella. That is, one lies longitudinally and the other transversely in a furrow between the wall plates. So what are these wall plates? So here it is made up of cellulose, mostly of cellulose. The cell wall has stiff cellulose plates. So there the cell wall deposition is mainly silica, and here the cell wall has stiff cellulose plates on its outer surface. So this is actually called that acts as an armor. So it is called the armored algae. Because of the presence of that cellulose plates, it acts as an armor. That is, it shows an appearance of an armor on the surface. So it is called the armor algae. And most of them have two flagella. And these two flagella, they're responsible for the spinning movement of dinoflagellates. Responsible for spinning movement. And mostly marine and photosynthetic, here due to the presence of pigments chlorophyll A, then chlorophyll C, and also xanthophyll. So they are mostly photosynthetic, and also the color is mainly due to the presence of these pigments in cell. They have the stiff cellulose plates on outer surface, and so they are also called armor algae. And the flagella, that is, they have, most of them have two flagella, and because of that they show spinning movement. And red dinoflagellates. So what are these red dinoflagellates? Example is Euglenoids. Euglenoids is a type of a dinoflagellate, and it multiply rapidly. So there will be a rapid multiplication of this dinoflagellate. Sometimes you would have seen that in the sea, there will be patches, red patches somewhere. You would have heard of it. So the red patches are nothing but due to the overgrowth of this dinoflagellates. So they give the red color to the seawater. So instead of blue water, the particular area in the sea will be red in color. That is due to the presence of this dinoflagellates. So these group of dinoflagellates, actually they release toxins, but it is not good. This seawater is red in color, that is not good, because they release a toxin, and these toxins, they kill the marine animals like fishes, and also it is toxic for humans. So through the fish, it enters the human through food chain, and it may cause the paralysis, that is numbness, of the numbness, and also it may cause the death. So these toxins are very dangerous, actually, as a result of growth of this dinoflagellates. And the main storage form of food here is starch. Is the storage form. It is stored as starch. And also one more feature of this dinoflagellates is they show bioluminescence. So what do you mean by bioluminescence? That is, they show the light, like because of the pigments, they emit light. That property is called the bioluminescence. So they glow in the dark. So that is the bioluminescence, which is one of the property of dinoflagellates. So dinoflagellates are marine, and they are photosynthetic organisms. And that photosynthetic activity is due to the presence of pigments. So they also differ in color due to the presence of these pigments. And cell wall has stiff cellulose plates. They look like an armor. So they are called armor algae. And most of them have two flagella. So as the name shows, dinoflagellates. And these flagella are responsible for the spinning movement of dinoflagellates, and example is gonialates. This gonialates is responsible for the red tides, that is, it will make the water red because of overgrowth of dinoflagellates, and they release toxins that kill marine animals like fishes. So actually, this is an important as far as exam point of view. It's an important question. That is, what causes red tides? Whether it is a Chrysophyte, diatom, or dinoflagellates, or some other organism. Like, so we have to be specific while learning all these things, that what is the characteristic feature of each organism. For example, if you take diatoms, it is diatomaceous earth, and the silicon cell wall is most important. And if you take dinoflagellates, here the cellulose plates are more important, and also here the red tide is one of the main feature that comes under dinoflagellate. So here, next we'll move on to euglenoids. So the famous example, that is the most common organism that comes under euglenoids is Euglena. So Euglena is the common organism here. So they are present in fresh water and also in stagnant water. So this is all are aquatic organisms. And instead of cell wall, here the feature is they have the protein-rich layer called pellicle. Pellicle is the outer layer instead of cell wall. So cell wall means it gives rigidity to the cell pellicle. So if pellicle is present, it gives flexibility to body. So the organism is flexible because of the presence of pellicle, which is an elastic layer. It's not such a stiff layer. So it gives flexibility to the body. And here these euglenoids also have two types of flagella. One is a shorter one, the other one is a longer one. So they have two flagella. And another main feature about this euglenoids is that you know that the euglenoid is photosynthetic. So why they are photosynthetic? And they are actually similar to plants in that they have chloroplast. They have chloroplast. So they can photosynthesize and they can prepare their own food. But if there is no light, the absence of sunlight, what happens is they behave like heterotrophs. So what do you mean by heterotrophs? Heterotroph means they are dependent on the other organisms for food. So though they can prepare their own food because of the presence of chloroplast, but if the sunlight is absent, they behave like heterotrophs by predating on other organisms. So they feed on other organisms. So this is one of the specific feature in the case of the euglenoids. So it is called the mixotrophic nutrition. Mixotrophic nutrition. So what do you mean by this mixotrophic nutrition? That is, they act both as autotroph and heterotroph. They can prepare their own food and also they can get the food from others, that is other organisms. So they act as autotrophs and heterotrophs. So this type is called the mixotrophic nutrition. So the pigments are identical to those of higher plants. So what do you mean by this? The pigments that are responsible for photosynthesis actually are same as that of in the higher plant, which is similarly like chlorophyll A. The pigments here are also like chlorophyll A, then chlorophyll B, and xanthophyll. So these pigments are similar to that of the higher plants. So they can photosynthesize their own food. When we made the main difference is they can act as both autotroph and heterotroph. So that is called the mixotrophic nutrition. And if you see the this is the structure of Euglena. So here you can see the pellicle. The outer layer is the pellicle. This is a elastic structure, so they don't have any rigid cell wall. So they have the chloroplast and the nucleus and nucleolus because they are a eukaryote. So they have the well-defined nucleus and nucleolus, and they have the structures that is called stigma, ice part. This is called ice part. They are responsible for light perception and flagella. So here there will be two types of flagella, the longer one and the shorter one. So this cavity is called the reservoir. This cavity is the reservoir, and this flagella actually arises from this cavity, and the small flagella will reside within this cavity. And there are the contractile vacuoles which are responsible for osmoregulation. That is maintenance of fluid and electrolyte balance in the body. So you are responsible for maintaining the osmoregulation. And the main storage form of food here is the form of fat and also a substance that is called paramylin. It's the storage form of food. It is stored as fat and paramylin. So these are the specific features of euglenoids. That is, they are photosynthetic in the presence of sunlight, but in the absence of sunlight, they behave like heterotrophs by predating on other organisms. So even there is no light, they can survive by depending on other organisms. And the pigments are identical to those of the higher plants. So they are similar to higher plants. And they have the contractile vacuoles which are responsible for osmoregulation, and the storage form of food is as fat and paramylin. So there is at the anterior part, there is a cavity which is called the reservoir. So these are the main features of euglenoids. Clear? The next type of organisms are the slime molds. So we saw that by the term molds, that they are similar to fungi. Similar to fungi. So in what ways they are similar to fungi? That is, they are saprophytic protists. So what do you mean by the term saprophytic? That is, they depend on the dead and decaying matter. Dead and decaying matter. They are saprophytic protists. The body moves along decaying twigs and leaves and engulfing the organic material. So it looks like the fungal growth. By appearance, it looks like a fungal growth. So under suitable conditions, they form an aggregation called plasmodium. So the structures are called plasmodium, and it spreads very fast. It's by appearance, it looks like exactly like the fungal growth. But under unfavorable conditions, what happens is this plasmodium, that is the growth, it forms an fruiting bodies. This plasmodium, it forms fruiting bodies bearing spores at the tip. So these are the spores. So initially there will be a formation of that plasmodium. The plasmodium differentiates and forms spores. The spore formation is similar to that of fungi. So it is similar to fungi, and they have true walls. So because of the spores, generally we know that spores will be dormant and they are resistant to other chemicals, and they can survive for many years. So these spores, they survive for many years and they are dispersed by air currents. So by the formation of spores, they are similar to fungi, and also they don't have chlorophyll. So first, initially, we saw that in the case of that is the Chrysophytes, Dinoflagellates, and Euglenoids, chlorophyll was there, so they were able to synthesize their own food. Here, they don't have chlorophyll, and also they form spores, which are the features which are similar to fungi. But why they are not included under fungi is their cell wall doesn't have chitin. There is no chitin, which is a characteristic feature in fungi. Here there is no chitin. That is one of the feature, and also about the mode of nutrition is also like here they show ingestion of food like an animal. Only the animals they show ingestion of food, but fungi they show absorption is the mode of nutrition there. So in some of the factors they differ from fungi, but some of the characters similar to that of fungi. So because they are having the ingestion mode of food and no chitin in the cell wall, here they are included under slime molds. So these are the main features about slime molds. They are also called the false fungi. Then next are the protozoan. So protozoan, or we know that they are animal-like Proteus. So most of the animal-like features will be there in protozoans. So they are heterotrophs. So they can't prepare their own food, and they may be either a predator or parasites. So predator means they are they depend on the other prey for their food. They catch the other animals. Or parasitic. Parasitic means they are dependent on the living organisms. That is, they live with the help of the other organisms. Like many parasites, you would have known, right? That is, they depend on the host animals for the food. It's a predator or a parasite. And they are the primitive relatives of animals. So they are the primitive forms. And there are 4 groups of protozoans. They are Amiiboid protozoan, Flagellated protozoan, ciliated protozoan, and sporozoan. So by the name itself, we can say on what basis we are classifying the protozoan. That is, here amoeboid means they have the amoeboid movement. So what are the main factors which help in the movement in the case of amoeba? This is the pseudopodia. Pseudopodia. So on the basis of locomotion, here they have the flagella. So in the ciliated protozoans, you'll have cilia, but the sporozoans are immobile. You don't have any locomotor organs. So based on the presence of the locomotor organs, they are classifying the protozoan into different categories. So first we'll see about amoeboid protozoan. So under amoeboid protozoan, they live in fresh water, seawater, or in moist soil. So fresh water, seawater, or moist soil. And they move and capture the prey by putting out pseudopodia or false feet. So what do you mean by this pseudopodia? So this is the structure of amoeba, and here you can see the nucleus, and these are the pseudopods. So actually this amoeba can change its shape. So whenever there is locomotion, or when it wants to catch its food, that is, these pseudopodia are very much helpful in locomotion and feeding. They can change its shape. So pseudopodia are the main parts which are involved in movement and also in feeding. And they have the contractile vacuole, which helps in osmoregulation. They have food vacuoles, which digest the food. So this is the example for an amoeboid protozoan. Example is amoeba. And marine forms, that is, they live in freshwater, seawater, or moist soil. So they move and capture prey by putting out the pseudopodia. So whenever there is a prey, it will enlarge. That is, the pseudopodia will enlarge and will capture the prey, and then the food is getting digested. So this is the false P. But marine forms, they have silica shells on their surface. Marine forms of amoeboid protozoans. And some are parasites. Examples are entamoeba. Entamoeba cause amoebiasis. You would have heard about of amoebiasis. Amoebiasis, which is caused by the organism Entamoeba histolytica. So amoebiasis, they act as a parasite. Entamoeba is an example for amoeboid protozoa. Clear? And the next type of protozoan is flagellated protozoan. So by the name itself, we know that they contain flagella. So here they may be free living, either they can live freely on its own or parasitic, that is dependent on the host organism for its survival. They have flagella, and parasitic forms causes diseases such as sleeping sickness. That is one of the diseases which is caused by this flagellated protozoan. Example is trypanosoma. Trypanosoma, it causes the sleeping sickness. So why it is named this? Because it causes disturbances in sleep pattern. Disturbances in sleep pattern. So it is called sleeping sickness. Flagellated protozoan. Main example is trypanosoma. So the next is the ciliated protozoan. So what are ciliated protozoan? They have the cilia. So here main example is paramecium. So this is the structure of paramecium. And this ciliated protozoans are highly evolved protozoan in compared to other types. They are highly evolved protozoan. So this are aquatic and actively move using cilia. So these are the cilia which are present outside. And this cilia also helps in the food intake, locomotion, and also in the intake of food. So they have a cavity called gullet. So the cavity is called gullet that opens to outside, which is similar to that of the mouth. So this gullet, it opens to outside. And due to the movement of cilia, the water with food, it enters into the gullet. So it enters into it with the help of cilia. So similar, first in the case of amoeboid protozoan, we saw that the pseudopodia helps in locomotion and also in the feeding. And then next in flagellated protozoan, saw the role of flagella. And then in the case of ciliated protozoan, the cilia mainly helps in locomotion and also in feeding. So due to the movement of the cilia, water with food, it enters into the gullet and enters into the body. And they have two types of nucleus. If you see the structure of paramecium, they have two types of nucleus. One is called the micronucleus and another one is called the macronucleus. So this micronucleus is actually involved in reproduction, and they are the storehouse of genetic material. But this macronucleus is responsible for the other general functioning of the cell. So they contain many copies of the genetic material, and they are involved in general functioning of the cell. So they are the micronucleus and the macronucleus. So these two nucleus are responsible for the reproduction and general functioning of the cell. These are about the ciliated protozoan, and here they also have the contractile vacuole. So in all these organisms, mainly contractile vacuole is responsible for regulating the osmoregulation, that is in maintaining the fluid and electrolyte balance of the body. So these are about the ciliated protozoan. The next is the sporozoan. So what do you mean by the term sporozoan? That is, they form or they have an infectious spore-like stage in their life cycle. That's why they are called sporozoan, and they are immotile. That is, they cannot move. So a most common example is plasmodium, that is, which causes the disease malaria. The malarial parasite plasmodium is one of the main example for sporozoan. It causes malaria. The main feature here is they form spores. So I hope you are clear with this till now. So what and all we saw under the Kingdom Protista. Just we'll have a recap of it and then we'll discuss few questions. So under Protista, the main feature under the Kingdom Protista they are unicellular eukaryotes. So they are unicellular eukaryotes. So we saw about the different types. The first one is Chrysophytes, then Dinoflagellates, then the different types like Chrysophytes, Dinoflagellates, Euglenoids, lime molds, and then protozoans. So under Chrysophytes, so what are the things that we saw about the diatoms and then desmids or the golden algae, and then Dinoflagellates, we saw about the rectide, that is Gammulex, and then under Euglenoids, so about Euglena, and the main feature in Euglenoids is mexotrophic nutrition, and then slime modes, which look like fungi, and protozoan, under protozoan, Amiiboid protozoan, then flagellated protozoan, ciliated protozoan, and sporozoans. So these are the different types of organisms that comes under the Kingdom Protista. Okay, is it clear? So these names and all, you just write it down and just memorize these names so that it will be easy for you. And also under each category, you just note down what is the main feature of that particular category. So only that is more important for your final exam. Okay, we'll discuss few questions. So Protista includes unicellular prokaryotes, unicellular eukaryotes, bacteriophages, and PGA. So what do you mean by PGA? It is blue-green algae. So which is the correct answer? Okay, I hope you're clear. No need for explanation. So unicellular prokaryotes will come only under Monera. So unicellular eukaryotes are Proteus. So what of bacteriophages? They are the viruses which infect bacteria. So this won't come under this. And this also. PGA is blue-green algae, also called cyanobacteria. So this cyanobacteria, it also comes under Monera, not under Proteus. So this is also wrong answer. The option is B. Locomotory structures in Proteus are. So I think it's easy for you and you can answer. Flagella, cilia, pseudopodia, and all. So which is the correct option? Is it option C? Go through once, right? Locomotory structures in generally Proteus, they have asked. It is not for any particular type. For example, we saw like flagellated, ciliated, and amoeboid movement. Like it is not specified as like that. It is generally asked as what are the locomotory structures in Protists. So what will be the answer? Yeah, it is option D, because in the case of amoeboid protozoan, it is pseudopodia, and in the case of ciliated protozoan, it is cilia, and in the case of flagellated protozoan, it is flagella. So all are correct. So the option D is correct. The correct option is option D. Okay, are you clear? diatomacous. The correct answer is option D. Okay, then the third question, diatoms do not easily decay like most of the other algae because they have highly siliceous wall, they have waterproof cells, their cell wall or mucilagous, cell wall is virus resistance. So this is also one of the easy question. Yeah, option A. Yes, correct, Nandini. Because they have the highly siliceous cell wall. It is silica content is more. It is not the waterproof cells or mucilaginous or virus resistant. So because of the high amount of silica, they do not easily decay. So the degradation will be delayed. So the next question, diatomaceous earth is used for all except. So it is used for polishing, filtration of oils and syrups, sound and fireproof room, and biogas. So it is the option. Fourth one, option D. Yeah, it's good. Because we saw all these properties, that is, it is used for polishing, filtration of oil and syrups, and sound and fireproof room. But it is not used as a biogas. Diatomaceous earth is not used as a biogas. Next question, red tides. So it is an important factor. Red tides in warm coastal water develop due to superabundance of. So why the red tides are formed? It is option A. Yeah, correct. Good. I hope everyone is clear with this. Red tides in warm coastal water develop due to superabundance of Dinoflagellates, that is Euglenoids. It is not due to Euglenoids, and it is not due to diatoms or desmids, and it is not due to Chlamydomonas nivalis. It is due to the presence of Dinoflagellate Euglenoids. The next question is, which of the following statements about Euglena is true? Euglenoids or flagellates. Euglena placed in continuous darkness lose their photosynthetic activity and die. The pigments of Euglena are quite different from those of green plants. Euglena is a marine protist. So which of the following statements about Euglena is true? For sixth question, it is option A. Yeah, correct. Ayman and Nandini, all correct. This is the true statement. Euglenoids are, all the euglenoids will have flagella. So here why it is wrong? Euglena placed in continuous darkness. They lose their photosynthetic activity and die, it is given. But actually what happens? Even there is no photosynthesis, they can get the nutrients from other organisms. That is heterotrophic mode of nutrition, and they exist. So this is not a true factor. And also the pigments of Euglena are actually not different from those of green plants. They are same as green plants. So this is also the wrong answer. And also it is not a marine protist. Then the next is, instead of a cell wall, they have a protein-rich pellicle, making their body flexible. So there's no cell wall, but they have pellicle. They have two flagella, locomotion, and they have mixotrophic nutrition. We saw that they act as both autotrophs and heterotrophs. Light, they are photosynthetic, but act as heterotrophs, predating other smaller organisms when they are in dark. They are connecting link between plants and animals. So above statements are assigned to. So what is the correct option? Yeah, good. It's option D. Yeah, both are good. Option D, that is Euglena, is the correct option. So here the one more thing is they are the connecting link between plants and animals, because some scientists they will include the Euglena under plants because of the presence of chloroplast, and some scientists they will include it under animals because of the mode of nutrition, and also they have the flagella for locomotions. So they act as a connecting link between plants and animals. So generally we saw that Proteus, the kingdom Proteus, or the connective link between the higher levels of kingdom. So here the Euglena is tough to categorize under the definite category. So which one is correct about Trypanosoma? Whether they are the flagellated protozoan, they are parasite, and they cause sleeping sickness. So which is the correct option for this? Yeah, option D. All are correct. So they are flagellated protozoan, they are parasites, they cause sleeping sickness. So D is the correct option. All are correct. So Plasmodium is, whether it is a sporozoan, the malarial parasite, whether it is a ciliated protozoan, whether it is a flagellated protozoan, or is it an Amiiboid protozoan? Yeah, and A is option. Good. It is a sporozoan because they form spores. It's not the ciliated, not flagellated, or a Amiiboid protozoan. Select the following statements that does not apply to diatoms. So you read the question carefully, that does not apply to diatoms. Diatom cell wall may be impregnated with silicon, and then cell wall is made up of two half shells fit tightly together, and diatom is a chrysophyte, diatom is multiflagellate. So which is the correct option in this? Yeah, it is option D. Why? We know that all these are correct. That is siliceous thing impregnated with silica, and then with the two half cells put together, and it is a type of chrysophyte, but multiflagellate is the wrong option because they are immobile. D is the correct option. Which of the following is not correctly matched? So diatoms, we saw that the main storage material is diatoms, it is chrysolaminarin and fat. And euglenoids, it is given as paramylum and fat. And dinoflagellates, it is starch. And slime molds, it is fucoxanthin. So which one is not correctly matched? So we saw chrysolaminarin and fat in the case of diatoms. So laminarin is a type of carbohydrate that is present in chrysophytes. So this is correct. And paramylum and fat is the storage form in the case of Euglena. So this is also the correct option. And in the case of dinoflagellates, starch is the storage form. But in the case of slime molds, it is not fucoxanthin, but it is the form of oil and also glycogen in the case of slime mold. So this is not correctly matched. So this is the option. So are you clear with this? Option D. Okay. So these are the various storage form of food in the case of different organisms like diatoms, euglenoids, dinoflagellates, and slime molds. Okay. So do you have any doubts in this chapter? So are you clear with it? So only while studying the names, you just write it down. First, Chrysophytes and what are the names. You keep reading those names daily, so that will be easy for you to memorize the names. Because then Euglenoids and then Chrysophytes, maybe the terms may be little confusing. You just keep writing and it will be easy for you to study. So I hope you are clear with this. So we have completed the general classification, the 5 kingdom classification about the kingdom Monera, Protista, fungi, plants, and animalia. And we completed the description about kingdom Monera and also about the kingdom Protista. So I hope you are clear till this. So on Monday, we'll see about the kingdom fungi and then kingdom plantae and animalia. So everything is clear? Any doubts?